You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. Today is July 15th, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Monday?
Oh, Spencer, hello. I'm doing quite well. It is hot, man. It's hot in my neck of the woods. We're just one heat wave after another, but I'm in my basement, PC bunker, trying to cool myself down. But yeah, so that means a lot of time for WoW lately, I guess, because I'm trying not to be murdered by the sun.
Yep,
yeah,
fair enough.
So that's good. I mean, it's what we got. Last week we were talking about, well, pre-patch has to be pretty soon. Like, we know that. Like, obviously, expansion's like a month and a half away. Whatever. They like to get the pre-patch out a month in advance. This was like last Monday. We're talking about this. And of course, we got the announcement this week. So now everything's starting to click into place. The timeline is all laid out before us. And now it really feels real now.
Yeah. And they finished putting out all their blog posts, which we get to talk about today on the show. We also had Season Discovery kick off last week. So a bunch of people dived into that, and we're checking that out. I did not dive in myself. I'm staying true to I'm taking Season 4 away from Season of Discovery so that I can actually focus more on War Within stuff, which is going to be my main focus WoW-wise going forward. So next week, when we get our update for the pre-patch, that'll be a nice return to diving into all that new content and prepping characters and getting stuff all ready to go. And then, of course, we have that month, and then we have the early launch on the 22nd of August, which will run through to the main launch a few days later, and then a few weeks after that, raiding comes out, and we'll see raiding start happening. So I imagine we'll start seeing raid testing soon. That'll start happening on all of the PTRs and whatnot for folks.
Yeah, they've been doing it. It's underway, and I think they added another round. There was some schedule updates to it there last week. So yeah, it's in. I missed
the first
process.
wave of it.
Yeah,
that was all perfect. Good to know. But yes, so as long as that's taking place, then we should see people coming out with that content and guides and whatnot fairly soon as to how to do that sort of content, which would be good to see, and people getting sneak peeks of that. So yeah, there's a lot. WoW is continuing to ramp up. I think we will probably see an upwards ramp of WoW for the next 3 months. Is what I think we'll probably see, and then we'll see a lull for about 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then we'll have the next phase launch or patch launch when it comes to things. So we'll have phase 5 with Season Discovery. We'll have the sort of first major patch for War Within, and probably an announcement about whatever they plan to do next with Classic will probably all happen in the same sort of realm of that November kind of range of content coming out. So we'll have to see what happens around that. But yeah, it's an exciting time for WoW. And before we jump into what's going on this week, Jason, is there anything you want to highlight from last week in that hiding in your bunker WoW period?
Yeah. Oh man, I had a really busy week because, especially once pre-patch got dated and everything. I mean, listen, I knew when it was going to be. I mean, you could probably listen to the last month worth of shows where I'm saying I expect it to be July 23rd in NA. So it's exactly lined up with my expectations, but it is a bit different once stuff is officially locked in, and once the communication's out there. So I really have sort of shifted into a mode of trying to get stuff done before War Within that I want to have done, right? Like when War Within comes out, I want to just be playing that, and I don't want to be thinking about stuff I didn't do yet, or I was going to go back and check this out and I just never got around to it. So that was a lot of time spent this week. Raiding, Dragonflight raiding was again just one night like we've been doing. Attendance was pretty healthy. I don't know how. I was shocked. We had like 8 more people than signed up show up to raid, so that was awesome. We full cleared Heroic, Awakened to Mirdrasil. We had time to do first 2 Mythic. We didn't quite have time to get to Volcaros, but whatever. That's still a nice vault for people that showed up and everything. Did some keys, but only 4. I'd been doing 8 keys a week, every week, all season. This was the 11th week of the season or something, I think, this past week. So I kept it going for a long time. It's just like, there's nothing left. I'm not pushing rating. There's really nothing I need out of the vault. Just there's one specific thing that would be nice if it happened to roll, but it doesn't matter. So I got in there and did a few, but I don't even know if I'll end up doing 4 this coming week. it's the end of the season. It's just over, right? I'm just ready to move into the next phase. We did on a remix side, we did one night of Guild Raid, which was cool. We had a decent amount of people show up. It's more fun to play with your friends. I mean, yeah, you can just plug into whatever, but I don't find a gameplay of remix at like max item level very engaging. Everything just dies. So if you're not hanging out with your friends and just, making it more of a social thing, then it's really not that interesting to me. So it was nice that people showed up. We got to, play together and either gear some people up or, just get everybody a bunch of bronze. I had that Undead Warrior that I started that I mentioned last week on the show. I got that tuned to max. And then I made a Lightforged Warrior too. Because I was just thinking, like, listen, this doubles my bronze. What if I get even more bronze? And then you get all the bonus bronze just from leveling up and everything. So I made a Lightforged Warrior the other day. I think it was Thursday. And I got incredibly lucky because the first thing I did was I queued into a heroic dungeon. And I queued in with somebody who was playing with a friend to level up their friend. And they were playing on a capped level 20 priest. And just chain queuing heroics. So I just rode with them for 2 hours and leveled straight to 70 without doing anything else. So that person was just doing yeoman work. So thank you. I ended up just being like, hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Whatever. We exchanged Battle.net IDs. I ended up hooking up with them like later on in the week to help them out with some gem transfers or whatever. Cause it's like, this person was obviously cool. They obviously knew what they were doing. So that was awesome. That was a really fun experience. And that got me so much extra bronze so fast.
Right.
And so now I'm done with Remix. I don't think I'm going to play it anymore unless somebody asks me for help with something because I bought out all the vendors. I got all the transmogs, all the mounts, all the toys. I got all the stuff from doing the achievements. I got all the unique stuff, and anything you can do with bronze, I already did. I got all the heirlooms. I got the Garrosh shoulders and there's no like pull for me in that content at this point.
Right.
So I'm happy to be done with it. I loved it for what it was. It was really fun on the way up, and it was really fun for a little while at the top of the power curve. And I'm just done, So that feels really nice just to have that out of the kind of routine. And then I got into my kind of last set of pre-expansion stuff I wanted to do. I got the priest set up in Shadow in like a semi-modern leveling build. I leveled the priest from 60 to 70 this week in Dragonflight. In like a day, just doing questing, outdoor stuff. Remember, you get the XP bonus in whatever zone is empowered with the Dream Surge. So this week was Waking Shores. I just hung out in Waking Shores, did all the world quests, did the quest lines, and it stacked up pretty fast. So Priest is done. That's, class number 12 in Dragonflight. I just have the Warlock to go, which I have the Warlock set up with a Demonology build. I got him out to Waking Shores. Maybe I'll do a little bit of stuff before reset, and then I'll switch over to whatever zone gets empowered next reset week. I would love to have all 13 classes at 70 in Dragonflight before pre-patch, because then with the huge XP discount and everything, I can play allied races, horde tunes, whatever, just stuff that is lower priority, but I want to kind of check out. And then the other big thing on my list was Heritage Armors. So I did Draenei, Troll, and Undead this week, which were the 3 I didn't have. So my Heritage Armors are totally up to date now. That was awesome, really fun. The Draenei quest line was great. The Troll one, they were all actually really good. I think they were really well done. They were fun to do. The rewards are mostly pretty cool. I think the Troll is probably the big winner of these sets. But I love the Heritage Armors because the quest lines, because of the way they sort of tie the past and future of these races together in the storyline in a way that like normal questing really could never do. It's so specific to a certain group of characters. And I think I really loved the Draenei one because it brought in so many different characters that we know from across the different like societies that sort of belong to Draenei, right? Everything from the Krokul, like the Broken, and to the Minari that are reformed, the Penitent, and all that. Like they have a lot of stuff going on. You get the Lightforged and the Penitent like next to each other. These are societies that fought like a centuries-long war against each other, and now they're sort of trying to mend fences, figure out the common ground, and build a new society around it. It was just really well done. Plus, you get to hang out with Akama a little bit, which was really cool. So I love those. They were the Undead one, like you're fighting against a Scarlet Crusade in Tyr's Fall Glades and stuff. That was really fun. And the Troll one is about sort of the Darkspear reconnecting with their Loa, and there's some Bwansamdi stuff. And anytime you involve Bwansamdi, that's going to be a good time. So they were really fun. I'm glad I got those done because now they're off the list. And when new stuff comes out, I'm just living in new stuff. And that is that's a big goal that I like to have at the end of an expansion, right? I don't want some pull to go back to older content. I want those loops closed so that I can just live in the new stuff.
Yeah, I get that entirely, and I love when they harken, especially Scarlet Crusade stuff. I love when they harken back to a part of WoW and a time of WoW that really touches players who were around when it was like active live content. You know, the whole Ashbringer storyline and what happened with Scarlet Crusade and everything around that to me is just, it's got a special place in my heart because it was, you know, when I was 17 or 18 and playing the video game for the first time going through this sort of content. So it's nice to have the heritage armors not only tie back to the race's earlier time, but it also ties back to players' earlier time in the game. And I think that's a neat touch. So the storylines are just such a good opportunity, the heritage armor storylines, to explore questing specific to a particular race that we just don't get to do that often with a lot of these expansions. Most expansion content that we get is focused around the new race that we're just meeting and the new people and the new people's problems and what's happening with that. And there'll be little tie-ins here or there, small conversations about what's happening with night elves or what's happening with the trolls or what's happening with undead. But rarely do we get a sort of a look back into that history and how they sort of have arrived at this location, or inside the Draenei's case that you talked about, hey, here's something that has been going on for a while politically for them since we had this expansion years ago. And so we get a little update on how that progression's taking place between these different factions and what's happening with that. And I love the opportunity to shine a flashlight on those sorts of areas of lore and allow people to sort of check in and see those things. So yeah, I'd always recommend doing heritage armor stuff if people are, you know, like, hey, I don't really know what I want to do with WoW right now. You're like, well, if you don't have a heritage armor yet, there's some pretty cool quest chains out there you could go and get. And the armors look pretty awesome most of the time. So there's very few of them that I haven't been like, that's rad. Like, I definitely feel like that fits the vibe for them.
Yeah, almost all of them are really great looking. I mean, I think the Draenei one is more of an acquired taste. It's way more in that Artificer vibe than like a Vindicator or something, you know, but it's definitely a unique look. I feel like the Vindicator kind of look has been served for plate wearers, at least in other places. The Undead one is a little plain, but has some nice flourishes. Undead also is sort of at a disadvantage because much like Night Elf and Human and Orc, you had the war fronts in BFA that had like unique, very like racially themed sets for each of those for all different armor types. So, you know, those are still really nice looking armors. BFA's been a few years now, but it's not like they're, you know, busted looking appearances. So, you know, I had my Undead DK set up in some plate from the Darkshire Warfront that looked really cool. And it's sort of a toss up as to which one even looks better, but you could mix and match pieces too. It's not like you have to use the whole set. And there's some really cool touches on all of these sets. So, and you only have to be level 50. And I don't think there's any rep requirements for any of these anymore. And level 50 is not that hard to get to, you know, even in the live game right now. It's going to be a lot easier after pre-patch goes live. So that's a really, I can't recommend them more highly. Most of the heritage quest lines are really fun and really give you an insight into some characters that we don't get to check in with a lot.
Yeah, it's just such a good opportunity to explore the lore around those sorts of things. All right. Is that wrap up what you wanted to cover this past week in WoW before we dive into what's going on next? Perfect.
Huge. I played so much WoW this week, but it was, you know, it wasn't like just slamming dungeons or something. It was doing all this kind of, I want to call it prep, but it's just prep for my own mental state more so than anything. You know, It's not like it's anything that's going to carry forward in terms of power or unlocks or whatever into War Within. It's just like, okay, this is my checklist. This is stuff that I want to make sure I'm done with before Dragonflight goes away and or before War Within comes out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, then let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week in World of Warcraft, it's the Warlords of Draenor Time Walking event, meaning the Sign of Iron buff is up, where Warlords of Draenor reputation gains from combat and quests are increased by 50%, and characters level 40 and up can access time walking versions of Auchindoun, Bloodmaw Slag Mines, Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, and Skyreach. Getting yourself some 467 eye-level gear on that 1 of 8 adventurer track at the end of dungeon, or you can visit the vendor who sells 450 eye-level gear, and if you complete 5 of these time-walking dungeons, you get yourself a cache of normal raid gear, that awakened raid gear, if that's something that you're looking to get. So, man, Warlords of Draenor time walking. It's a great time walking week, to be honest. I just really dig a lot of these dungeons. Even Grimrail Depot is still fun to go back and time walk through because, I mean, time walking dungeons are easy enough that you can kind of not worry as much about people making mistakes on the train. Let's just be clear. Shadow Moon Burial Grounds is still one of my least favorite dungeons. I don't know why. A lot of people like it. It just has never spoken to me very well. But yeah, I think Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Sky Reach, Auchindoun, these are all very, even Bloodmaw Slag Mines are all very like prominent dungeons in my mind over the past chunk of years that I've enjoyed doing. Bloodmaw Slag Mines, where you had to get, what's his name, off of the wheel. And
Crowman,
yes.
The Conan pastiche,
exactly,
Crowman. Yeah.
Oh,
he's great. He's a legend of Draenor right there. Yeah, these are good dungeons for sure. Warlords was probably the worst 2 year span ish of the game that we lived through.
Yeah, it wasn't even 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, mercifully it wasn't. There were a lot of issues with Warlords, but the dungeon content was not the problem. These dungeons are cool and they're mostly fun time walking runs. Even if everybody on your team that you queue in with doesn't really know what they're doing, they're not mostly too bad. Yeah, I definitely enjoy these. And, a couple of, Shadow Moon Burial Grounds it was a really good keystone in this expansion. And Grimrail Depot was actually a decent keystone somehow, even though we were scared of it, I felt like Slag Mines really could have a future as a keystone. Everbloom was kind of mixed, but it's a cool dungeon thematically for sure. No raid associated with this time walking event so far. Pandaria should be up next actually we haven't gotten a new time walking raid in a while. So that's off the table for this week, which is kind of unfortunate. Yeah, these are good dungeons to do, but this is falling in a really weird spot because we're in such a lame duck of a patch at this point. It's like really, like it's hard for me to recommend that you spend any time unless you have some checklist like I was just talking about mine. Like, I don't know about doing this week. Like, the gear is not going to really help you with anything. I'm sure that we're going to get much better gear much more simply in a couple weeks once the pre-expansion event starts. It's going to be way easier to level up next week once the XP discounts come in from 1 to 70. So it's just kind of up to you in terms of what your goals are. Like, this is not mission critical, even if you have stuff that you want to level up or start gearing up or whatever. It's okay. It's there. It's rolling this week. But 2 months ago, it would have been a different story, right? But since we're right on the precipice of all of these changes, it's a little hard to kind of justify, I feel like, right? Like, I can't come up with a compelling reason why you need to do this week. Like, if you want to, cool, it's there, but it's not going to make or break your tune at this point.
When we move into this phase of World of Warcraft, where we're a week away from pre-patch landing and, so many new features coming in and so much change happening to everyone's classes and talent trees and everything else, this really is the time for you to either make the decision of, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a bit of time off for this week, really mentally get myself prepared, and then head into, pre-patch with like a clear mind and a refreshed body when it comes to receiving all of these changes that are going to be happening. Or this is the week where you're like, I got to clear out my bank. I got to get my characters organized. I've got to figure out who I want to level and what I want to, do whatever as far as, the actual pre-patch goes, and start sort of getting your ducks in a row when it comes to what's the expansion going live and what you're going to be doing when the expansion goes live. I lean towards the take a mental break. If you are someone who's like, you know what, I just love World of Warcraft. I love being in World of Warcraft. I love exploring World of Warcraft. This is one of those things that you can do to spend your time. Like, the rewards, as Jason said, are not going to be the things that you do it for. You're going to do it for, hey, you know what, I really like Bloodmaw Slag Mines and I want to go back and run it again because I enjoy dodging fiery boulders and fighting ogres. Like, could be your thing. And cool, dive in and do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, and helping Crowman. Yeah. And maybe it's a week for you to go back and really enjoy that era in World of Warcraft, because the Brawl this week is classic Ashran. So guess what? If you really enjoyed Warlords, hey, what do you know?
All you Warlords enjoyers, this is your big week. It's your big chance.
I know.
You go revisit 2014 right now.
Exactly. If you are out there doing content too, you can knock over Bazul, the Dreaded Flame. It's the Awakened World boss for the week. That's right. So that means that this week the weekly quest for you to do your last hurrah is Community Feast, participate in a hunt, and siege on Dragonbane Keep. So be sure you're taking advantage of that for your last hurrah, if that's something else you want to do. And when it comes...
Let me squeeze in one little optimization tip for Dragon Isle's last hurrah. I believe Siege on Dragonbane Keep occurs every odd hour on the hour.
All right.
So a Community Feast, I believe, occurs every hour on the hour. And so what I try to do is find a Dragonbane Keep, go do that. That takes about 4 minutes if you have like a full shard. And if you don't, then just use the group finder and get in a full shard. You blast Dragonbane Keep in like 4 minutes, and Community Feast lasts like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. So you have plenty of time to scoot down there and then do the Community Feast instead of waiting like an hour and a half for Dragonbane Keep to roll over once you're done with Community Feast, right? So that's, I think in NA, this happens at like 11 a.m. So if you can get in like right before reset, if servers are up, and you can just go do this, and then that part is done, and the hunts just roll all the time. There's always one happening, in whatever zone they're happening in. So it's just really obnoxious to be on the wrong end of a Dragonbane Keep spawn and just want to get your box for the week and be done. And you got to wait like almost an hour and a half or something or more, almost 2 hours. I mean, the event is so fast now, so that overlap, that's definitely the way to do it. Try to get Dragonbane Keep done, like prioritize that. And then you can hit the, the tail end of the Community Feast and be done with the timed stuff.
Yeah. Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Tyrannical, Incorporeal, and Spiteful, meaning bosses have more health and deal increased damage, while in combat, incorporeal beings periodically appear and attempt to weaken players, and fiends rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players. Again, this is the spooky week. This is Ghost Week. This is where you basically get in there and your bosses are hard, and then you add incorporeal to the bosses, and that just makes them more irritating. And then you go and do the trash, and the trash is double trash, because when you kill trash, it spawns spiteful trash, which you then have to either root in place and be locked in combat and continue on while it slowly rots away and dies again, I guess, because it's spirits. Or you have to just DPS it down and kill it, and that will, obviously push you out of combat, and you can have those combat breaks once you've defeated the spiteful ads, but you'll still be getting incorporeal because it just happens throughout the dungeon. So yeah, be ready for this is a bit of a crazy, ridiculous slog. The last week before pre-patch is this. Like this is like the worst tyrannical week you could run into almost, man. Oh.
This is so bad. It's so bad, especially considering that we're through this whole expansion and pretty much nothing matters to almost anybody anymore. Like the very high level Keystone runners are pushing for the title, but us mere mortals are not really concerned with such things. And this is one of the most obnoxious combos that exists, because Incorp and Spite, like, they're going to make trash take basically as long as fortified trash would, even though it's safer because it doesn't hit as hard. So you're not getting any of that time savings anywhere. And then, Spiteful holds you in combat, which is more time for Incorps to spawn or for them to stay on the field after you finish killing the actual mobs. And also Incorp is comp dependent. Not every spec is going to have some way to deal with Incorps. So you have to make sure that you plan accordingly. And even if you have classes that can deal with it, make sure the people that can deal with it are spec'd into the abilities that deal with it, right? A lot of times people just forget, you get that first keystone in for the week and you start up the first pull and somebody goes, oh, whoops. And then they got to run out and respec or whatever. So make sure you're prepared for that. I don't know, man. I might be like one and done this week or something. If I even get that far, I kind of would like to do one just to have something in the vault and, just have a chance to be like fully, completely top to bottom BIS in modern WoW would be really fun, which is the only reason I'm doing it. But yeah, this is just, it's not even that it's hard. It's just obnoxious. This week just feels awful.
Yeah. So, and this is one of those interesting questions, right? That I have no idea if someone posted or asked a dev out there somewhere. The vault isn't changing until expansion release, right?
Yeah. It won't change until season 1 would be my expectation.
That'd be my expectation as well.
There probably will be no vault the first 2 weeks of expansion at all. So probably. Maybe, but precedent would say that there wouldn't be one. But now we got some differences now that non-Keystone dungeons can add vault and delves can add to your vault. That we didn't have that before. So maybe we do have vaults for sort of that lower item level gear at the outset of War Within, but yeah, there's no massive changes coming in until at least expansion launch. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But
yeah, that would be my guess, because it used to be that right now everyone would be like, okay, we want to be sure you get a nice high vault for this week because there's a chance that something goes wonky and you get a crazy item level item out of your vault next week when they roll stuff over, because maybe it goes an oopsie and gives you like a max level or a crazy item level item. And so that would be the like theory crafty tinfoil hat wearing methodology that you'd use when coming towards something like a pre-patch like this. I will say that I personally am not going to do it. However, when it comes to the vault, we know that it is changing in War Within to move PvP off of it and move delves in, right? So that's why I was like, what is this going to look like, that transition? Like it must be that expansion launch hits, the vault goes away for that first week, or it essentially is locked for that first week, and PvP stuff becomes earnable when. Like this going to be all interesting questions to sort of find out for folks.
Right.
I don't know if PvP gear is going to be purchasable before season 1 launch happens. When that
probably
actually is going to be.
What do they call it? The Challenger gear or whatever?
Like the first base set?
Yeah, because you got to be able to get max level gear, right?
Like honor gear, yeah.
Yeah, like you got to be able to get to level 80 and then receive level 80 gear from these various things you can do in the game. But probably not stuff that's really going to be very exciting or provide you with some huge advantage going into season 1 opening. But yeah, there are some wrinkles that are different about Great Vault coming into this expansion that we did. Well, like Great Vault is still relatively new, right? It only came in Shadowlands, and there were some changes coming into Dragonflight, but not as much as this. This is a bigger overhaul, I feel like, with removing PvP entirely, bringing in a whole new system that feeds into it. So my expectation would be that it'll just be off from August 22nd until September 10th in NA. But we don't know. I guess we don't know for sure right now. We don't have that like set in stone in blue text at the moment, but that's sort of how I'm approaching it, I guess. Like, we'll just get there when we get there once season 1 opens.
I think it's a safe way to go because we know that for sure there won't be a vault before the actual launch of the game. The early release people who get in on the 22nd, we know are not getting a vault for doing delves at max level on the 24th or whatever it is. They're going to be getting a vault that next following Tuesday. That's not a thing. Blizzard is not doing that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right, if they're just turning the vault off for the first 2 weeks or whatever, and then vault unlocks and kicks in later on, lets people gear up through dungeons, get that kind of gear going, gear up through delves, get that kind of gear going, and have value before vault starts kicking in. But we'll have to wait and see, and I'm sure we'll get posts about it. But yeah, okay, next up, Micro Holiday, the Auction House Dance Party is taking place on the 22nd. So the day before, so the next Monday is what they're doing, the day before the launch of Prepatch. If you're someone who wants to go to the main auction houses in Orgrimmar or Stormwind, you can, and they're going to be cleared out. There's going to be, disco ball going on, the floor lit up, bunch of people dancing, having a party up on the stage, all sorts of stuff going on. You can head on in there and party if that's what you want to do. There's no, again, sort of particular reward when it comes to character power or like a permanent reward. You do, however, get Traveler's Log points for your Traveler's Log if that's something that you're looking to get. This is a good way to grab some more points for that if that's something you want. This is actually one of the most disorienting micro holidays that takes place for a lot of players, because they sort of go to the auction house they're used to going to inside Stormwind and walk in and go, oh, what's happening? Wait, what's going on?
I just want to buy or sell something, please. We won't be doing that there.
Yeah, you'll be going over to the Dwarven District to the auction house that's over there and using it instead, because you'll be a little taken aback walking into that main auction house. It's like, did I walk into the wrong building? What's happening here? That's what that feels like. Okay. We, I guess, need to start digging into these blogs, Jason. We have to start looking at what's going on when it comes to these blogs.
We get so much info. A lot of it is not new necessarily, but a lot of it is stuff that we kind of expected. I don't think there's any huge surprises in here if you've been following along since BlizzCon. But it's imminent, right? It's all laid out now, and we know what is happening and what to expect and when. And, you know, we got all the official stuff finally lined up with dates and times and everything like that. So it's weird because in a way, like, obviously it's super exciting, but it's not like there was some bombshell announcement as part of this, right? This was all stuff we were just like waiting on, just like checking our watches, going, it's got to be, that blog post got to be coming out pretty soon.
Yep.
And then, yeah, it finally did last week.
Yeah, so the initial blog post, which is in our show notes, is just the pre-expansion content update goes live on the 23rd. So we know that that is in fact happening next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. We will be getting the pre-patch going live. This will include the Warbands, which means we're going to get the big old character merge, which we'll talk about in a second. The Visions of Azeroth, which is the Strange Callings introductory quest line, or sort of final quest line, I guess is the way to look at it, for the chapter inside Dragonflight. So they'll wrap up the Dragonflight with the Visions of Azeroth sort of quest line, which also kicks off the War Within quest line. They have the Skyriding coming in. So a bunch of new mounts are going to be rolled over to being Skyriding mounts. Dragon riding is going away. You can toggle back and forth between them. Keep in mind that we're going to be figuring out what talents look like for Skyriding in this pre-patch. We're not specific in this in saying, hey, when Skyriding comes in, you're going to have all the talent tree and everything like that filled out for you for Skyriding. So you might need to go and visit a place and spend some points and figure out what that looks like. I don't know what that's going to look like, so we'll have to find out there. The answer the call of the Radiant Echoes. This is basically the pre-expansion event. Typically, these events are great events for experience. So we'll have to see what this feels like for a lot of folks. But you are essentially going to be collecting residual memories, and you can use them to purchase new items to add to your Warband collection. So we'll have to see what that looks like as well, as far as getting those Warband items out there for folks. That could be kind of cool and interesting. It could be Warbound gear, most likely is what it is, to catch characters up. So you're going to have the Warbands merger take place for all the characters on your account being merged. My expectation is a lot of these items from the Radiant Echoes event are going to be Warbound on equip items, where you can then mail gear from whatever your main is to your alternate characters to get them geared up and gear up your main with this gear for going into the expansion, because that's what we saw with previous events like this. Man,
yeah, I mean, this is a really, it's a really robust pre-patch when you think about it. Like, content aside, Warbands is one of the biggest shifts we've ever seen in the game, I think, really, when you think about what it encompasses and all the systems tied to it. Warbands is just, I mean, it must have been an incredible undertaking for the team to be able to stand this up, and it's something players have wanted for a long time. I'm sure it's something that people on the dev team have wanted for a long time. And now it's finally going to be going live, and it does fundamentally kind of change the way you approach or can approach the game. If you still mostly play one character, it doesn't matter that much, right? It'll give you some nice quality of life upgrades. But if you play more than one character regularly, it's massive, and it could actually, I feel like it could change people's behaviors. It may really influence you to play more than one character on a regular basis, because it removes some of these hurdles and barriers and stuff. And also the Skyriding thing is another huge change, changing the way players move around the world and being able to, kind of unlock the feature across players' entire collections. I mean, so many mounts are going to be Skyriding capable. Those are huge changes for a pre-patch. I mean, I would say maybe the biggest that we've seen since like the new character models in Warlords or something, right? Like it's just like, it's such a, it's an element of the game that's going to affect every player, no matter what you do or what you're doing in WoW, like what you're trying to get out of it. And there's not many things that you can say that are in that category, but no matter how you play, your experience is definitely going to be impacted, hopefully positively, by Warbands and Skyriding.
Well, one way it's not going to be positive for Skyriding. I went back to the blog from ages ago for Skyriding to check to make sure exactly what the lingo was they said, and that's some abilities that players have collected from their adventures in Dragon Isles, maybe restricted Dragon Isles, which we knew. But base abilities like increased vigor will become part of how Skyriding works and available to everyone as they level up. So the question is, as they level up, does that mean from level 1 leveling up, or does that mean leveling up in the new content? If what it means is
it account wide too?
Yeah,
right? Like
if what it means is we walk into this expansion and you're like, yay, Skyriding, and you go to hop on your Skyriding mount and you have 3 vigor, and you're like, wow, this sucks. That's not going to be great. So I'm hoping they mean level up in general when you're just playing through the game, and when you unlock flying and et cetera, you're earning vigor along the way. It's just part of the actual experience for playing the game normally, and not locked behind going into Khazalgar and leveling through all that content with the new, expansion content that's coming out. So we'll have to see how that plays for people, but be aware that you might hop on your favorite mount, and when you go from Dragon Isles to, Stormwind or wherever you're going, you lose a bunch of vigor and abilities and power and whatnot until the actual expansion launches, when you can earn that stuff back. That could be the case. They have not clarified that, so we'll have to find out what exactly that means once we actually get into the content and see what's going on. All right, the next blog post is like a sub-blog from this that talks about warbands, but it's actually longer than the first one. So we're going to get into get the band together for warbands. With the arrival of the War Within, upon first logging into World of Warcraft, the warband conversion process automatically enables many of the game's progression systems to be account-wide. Players will not need to log into each character individually for all progression items, etc. to convert. However, there may be a short wait for the system to completely process your warband the first time you log in. The warband conversion process can take up to 20 minutes or longer, and depending on the amount of data being processed, there could be a login queue. So next week on Thursday, get in as soon as you can, I guess, and just let the queue work itself through as it goes through everyone's accounts who's trying to log in. If you happen to not be able to, I don't want to say Thursday, I meant Tuesday. If you happen to not be able to log in until later that evening, maybe that actually works to your benefit, because a lot of the people got in early and they were able to get through the queue, and now you don't have a queue. We'll have to find out. I'm not someone who has 50 characters on my account with lots of currency spread across all of them and banks that are full and et cetera, that it has to sort of process and figure out what that's going to do to my account. But my account is very old. There is a lot of stuff on my account accumulated on the few characters I do have from playing the game for such a long time. And so I don't know how long this merger process is going to take, but it'll be interesting to see. And I'm glad they're preparing players by being like, hey, FYI, this could take 20 minutes or longer the first time you go to log in, because this is a brand new thing. I will just emphasize, this is a one-time thing. This isn't every time you log into the game. This isn't anything like that. This literally will happen once on your account, and then probably never happen again unless they let it spread across different regions. Right now, all the changes that they're doing in mergers are taking place, merges all the characters and collections and items and reputations and all that stuff for your characters across a single region. So just for the Americas or just for Europe or those sorts of things. If they ever expand this out to be like, yeah, guess what? We're going to let those people who raided for 2 years on a European server take all the rewards they got from that and merge them so they can use them across their entire account no matter where they play. That will probably be another wait like this that'll take place. If you're someone who actually has a European account like that, you'd be affected by that when that happens, if they do it sometime in the future. All right. And
I would think, I think maintenance is probably going to be really long next week. Right, I would expect 8-hour maintenance. Yeah, and it'll probably be extended multiple times. None of us in NA may be playing on Tuesday after maintenance starts. Who knows? And servers are probably going to be getting slammed, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be coming back to check it out and to check out the whole concept of sort of this account-wide approach to your game. And yeah, that may also result in queue times for logins or for these conversions or whatever. So it's going to be a little bit rocky, but I guess it's smart to not do this stuff in advance, right? To just auto kick off the warband conversion for every account during maintenance or something, because there's going to be a ton of accounts that never get touched again that haven't been touched in a long time and will never be touched again. So why even bother with that? So that's probably a big part of why you have to log in and initiate the process. Yeah, it's going to take a while, but once it's done, it'll probably be done forever. I have a feeling that the region thing is just, I don't think they can ever break that barrier down for a variety of reasons. It would be awesome. It's sort of the only restriction here in terms of what gets merged into your warband. And so, if you have a bunch of different WoW subscriptions under one Battle.net account, that might take longer. I don't know. I would assume that the more data they have to merge into the warband, the longer the conversion takes. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm just saying, temper your expectations. You're not going to be hopping in next Tuesday in NA and just, getting in, doing the new quest line and setting up your warband. Like we're going to be waiting. There's gonna be a lot of maintenance, and then you're gonna have to wait. Yeah,
it's definitely gonna be one of those things where you come home from work. If the actual servers are up at that point, log in, then go do dinner, do everything else, et cetera, et cetera. Let that thing just take its time, sitting in a queue, going through the process, figuring itself out, and hopefully by the time you come back up, to wherever your computer is, it's sort of at least done its process, or maybe hopefully done and then logged you out because you sat AFK at the Warband screen for too long. Speaking of the Warband screen, you can assign 4 characters to one scene. Basically, when you actually log in and you look at your character select screen, it's now going to have 4 characters sort of prominently hanging out, and you can choose sort of which those characters are going to be. However, they mentioned something in here that everyone's been asking for, which is with more scenes planned for you to collect in the future. Now, how that actually works is going to be interesting to me. Is this going to be a situation where we have different scenes where, like, hey, here's the one where you're hanging out in Stormwind. Here's the one where you're hanging out in, somewhere in the Dragon Isles. Here's one where you're hanging out in, and you can essentially change the background, but it's the same 4 characters. Or are the scenes actual scenes where you can have 4 Alliance characters hanging out in Stormwind, chilling at their spot, and then you can change the whole scene, and those 4 characters are no longer the ones who are present if you don't want them to be, and now have 4 Horde characters hanging out inside of Orgrimmar or something like that, and you can essentially pan your way through different scenes to sort of see different ones. We don't know what that's going to look like, but they just mentioned that we'll be able to collect more in the future, so it's nice to have that acknowledgement, and we'll have to see how the implementation goes later. I personally think it'd be really neat to have like your hunters collection of the different like hunting style characters you have, and have them at like the Hunter's Lodge from Legion or something like that. And then you have like that to me would be cool to be able to do, and sort of pan through the different ones, or like, oh, here's all of my demon-y kind of warlock and demon hunter style characters, and they can all be hanging out in the Broken Isles or something like that as your area hangout space, and you can sort of flick between the scenes. I think would be a really cool way to set that up, but I don't know what the limitations are.
That'd be awesome.
We'll have to see what they choose to do. Right now,
I think the order halls would be great. That would be a really cool addition. You know, they're such cool spaces, and they're just beautiful looking and so thematic. They speak to different players in different ways, and to see them reused in some way would be really cool.
Yeah.
This was, I think, the first thing on everybody's lips, right? When we saw the Warband login screen mock-up at BlizzCon, like when they first showed it, it wasn't even real, right? It was like it was just a mock-up of what it was going to look like. I think the first thing everybody said was, can we get different ways to customize the login screen? I think that occurred to basically everybody that was sitting anywhere in there, like everybody I talked to at the presentation. That was sort of the first thing we jumped to. So it's cool they confirmed that is the plan. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and maybe not even just scenes. Like maybe there's more stuff they could do to add different elements to customize it, make your login screen your own. Like you can see a lot of hooks in here, right? Like going down the road. Like once it's up and running, like there's a lot of stuff they could do with it.
Like it's that lean of, man, could this be the player housing thing? Is what was on everyone's mind of like, dude, if your login screen was your player housing, where you could literally decorate it with trophies that you've earned through achievements over the years, and you can go between different rooms and have different characters hanging out in different rooms, and you could there's so many things you could do with a login screen if you wanted to, because you're already in engine, like it already exists. You're already in the actual game at that point. So there's a lot of interesting things you could choose to do with something like this. So yeah, no, it's cool. I'm pumped to see what they go at it with the future. But for now, warbands are coming in the current state that they're in with that static background, and then 4 characters that you choose. You are also going to see some UI functionality of the character bank get sort of shifted around a bit. How this is going to work, because the banking is actually got 2 really important points that are happening here. The UI and functionality of the character level bank will be adjusted in the future, and tabs like the War Bank will also be adjusted. Bags will no longer be needed in the character bank when this change occurs. This change won't alter the number of slots currently available in your bank, but will shift them from bags to tabs. So we'd heard this before, but I just want to reiterate again that War Bank sort of look, Warband bank sort of look, and your own personal bank sort of look is going to change, and it's going to go more tab-based and less bag-based and work better that way. So that UI is going to get an overhaul, which is good to see. when it comes to banking together. So this is completing the Warbanding Together storyline quest in and around Gadgetzan will get you access, which I love to hear, by the way, because it means, hey, look, we're back in Azeroth doing things in Azeroth inside Azeroth places. It's going to be cool. We'll get you access to heaps of storage for your warband. Now, we don't know what this heaps of storage means. It could mean that you get access to more tabs. It could be how you unlock the tabs. It could be how you unlock the ability to spend gold to unlock tabs. We don't know, but we'll see what that looks like. They just mentioned it unlocks heaps of storage. You'll be rewarded the Warband Bank Distance Inhibitor spell after finishing up this quest, which summons a personal portal directly to your Warband bank where you can make withdrawals and deposits for 10 minutes on a 4-hour cooldown. So essentially, once you've completed this quest chain in Gadgetzan, you will have access to a portal that opens up your Warband bank, and you can then have access to that for 10 minutes on a 4-hour cooldown. It's fitting that this happens around Gadgetzan because one of the goblin racials was initially, hey, have access to your bank wherever you are, which was a nice thing for them to throw in. So I love seeing this. I want to highlight this for players for sure, because this is a quest chain that you're going to want to do, because when you're out in the world questing, it's really helpful to be able to pop open a bank and just throw stuff into it and then close the portal on the bank and walk away and keep doing the thing that you're doing as opposed to going back to town to deal with it. So certainly worthwhile checking out.
Yeah, really cool. This was new to me. I don't know if I missed this somewhere along the line or if this was not formally announced until this post, but really cool. I love the idea of having like a remote control, access to the bank. It's a long cooldown for sure, but most of that stuff works that way. Your mail toys and your other bank toys and stuff like that. So it's, it's in line with the other stuff, but the Warband bank is going to be sort of an essential addition, right? I feel like you need that shared storage among characters if you're moving to this model. And the cool thing about it, I guess, is that it works sort of like the reagent bank in that you can craft out of it and everything like that. So you might want to just end up storing all your stuff in there. If you have multiple different kinds of crafters, there are different reagents that professions share, right? So that might be a good way to use it. But if you have specific items or something you want to put in there, and I forgot to take out that warband equipped item for this character, and now I'm out in the world doing the thing I was going to do. Well, if you do this quest, you could just open your bank and pull it out of there and use it. So really nice. Just sort of all the stuff kind of needs to fit into place, right? Like if we're going account wide everything, then we need a shared bank, and if we have a shared bank, then there should be some premium way to access it remotely. And so there you go. It'll all be there for us next week once we can log into the game.
Exactly. So a couple other reminders here for folks. You will no longer need to equip the item as far as transmog goes to add it to your collection. So when it comes to transmog, basically picking up an item, any item that is destroyed via enchanting, deleting, selling, you're going to automatically collect the appearance on. So it also saves me from doing the thing of when I loot greens out in the world and I'm like, you don't have this transmog appearance yet. I have to right-click on it to equip it and then right-click on it to put my actual piece of gear back on. And then I can actually sell it and get rid of it because I've now collected the appearance. It's just when you actually pick something up, it is, and you're getting rid of it, it's added to your collection. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You can also collect the appearances of BOE gear by converting it into Warbound until equipped instead. So if you're someone who's like, hey, I'm picking up a bunch of BOEs, these might be a good piece of gear for other characters on my account, or these are transmogs I don't have that I want to have, you can just convert them into Warbound until equipped gear, and that will actually get you the transmog, and it's not bound to that particular character. You can actually still mail it off to other characters, which gives an additional use to it as opposed to just selling it or disenchanting it at that point, if that's what you want to do after getting the transmog for it. So good changes for transmog coming in there. They're also saying that when rolling for transmog, any gear that drops that can be equipped by your current character will get a higher rolling priority than those rolling with characters who cannot equip the gear, i.e. a priest will always beat a warrior when both rolling transmog on a piece of cloth gear. So this is the mains over alts way of incorporating this into rolling. This means that, hey, if you're inside of a run, the character that you're in that run on is the character that has priority over that piece of gear over someone's alternate character when it comes to transmog. So that's another good thing to know. You won't have, here's an example that you won't see inside the expansion, but you won't have a priest beating a warrior rolling on the Tusks of Manaroth shoulders inside of a dungeon. That's not a thing. The priest can't equip those, but they could still gain the transmog. If 2 priests rolled, guess what? It's a normal roll. There's no warrior involved in that at all. There's no plate wearer involved in that at all. One of those 2 priests are getting them, and their warrior character on their account will be able to throw on that transmog later on if they're wanting to. So that's how the rolling system is going to work for it. I think it's good.
Which is, it's fair, right? Like, it basically, it sort of behaves similarly to the way it does now, in a way. Like, it gives basically a buff or a bonus to a class that is intended for the appearance. So it's sort of like a separate tier of transmog rolling below that, right? Like, if it's something that you can actually equip, then it works the same way that transmog rolling does now. And then if it's not, then it's sort of everybody else rolling against each other who can't equip it. So I think that was smart, because that thought kind of occurred to me, as I'm thinking about this stuff. Like, okay, any toon can learn the transmog appearance of any type of gear, any type of armor, weapon, whatever, just by possessing the item. You learn the mog even if you can't mog onto it, right? Like, you can't use the mog, but now it's on your account. And so I did have the thought of like, well, what are they going to do with transmog rolls? Because everybody can learn every transmog now. So, and this is what they're going to do. If it's for your character, you get that kind of preference. You get that preferential kind of status on the roll. So yeah, you're not going to have warriors beating priests on cloth gear or whatever, or the other way around, right? If it's for your toon's class, then you will get priority. And that might be confusing, I think, for people at first. There's a lot of stuff about this that is definitely confusing to people already, just from having, various conversations with people about the changes that are coming in. I think once we're in it and once we live there, it's going to be more intuitive, but, kind of looking at the scope of everything that's changing does get a little intimidating, shall we say. Like, there's just so much stuff that's changing and so many little edge cases that have to be accounted for as a result of those changes.
Yeah. As far as reputations go, the reputation that is progressed the furthest on any of the characters on your account is the one that all of yours will be moved to. For example, if you were at Renown 5 for Valdrakken and one character was at Renown 10 on another, your new Warbound Valdrakken Accord Renown would be 10. So it's not additive, it's not making you 15, it's just going to the highest one, doing that across the account as far as reputations go. Several reputations will not be converted for various reasons, like the Winterpelt Furbolgs and the Glimmerrog Racer, due to not fitting with the fantasy of those reputations, where Winterpelt Furbolg has an actual language component that is being learned and doesn't make sense to sort of share across characters. So you will see some little niche cases where, just as far as an RPG aspect goes, it didn't fit to make that change. Additionally, converting reputations in previous expansions will take some time to implement, so that will happen over time. A limited number won't be converted, like Aldor and Scryer and Burning Crusade and the Covenants and Shadowlands, because they represent a per character choice that your character was making. So you're not going to have, hey, I'm now maxed with both Aldor and Scryer and all of the different Shadowlands ones at the same time. That just isn't going to be a thing, because you had characters that sort of maxed out each of those individually. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and that the older ones are coming just in time. They'll be rolling that out later on. So if you log in and you're like, man, why is this character not maxed out with Cenarian Circle? My other one is. Well, just give it some time, and they'll get through those other ones too. Just, give them some time to work through all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the achievements being account wide and the achievement progress is that for stuff where it's hitting certain thresholds with rep or whatever, it's not an additive process. It's just whatever the highest achieved rank is goes account wide. There are some where it's like, oh, do this activity X amount, whatever. That stuff is different. That'll be, in the account wide pool in terms of like earning it. But yeah, there specifically like the rep stuff, that doesn't, you can't just level up, 10 characters to rank 2 of a renown and then you get rank 20. You have to take one character up the ladder. And yeah, some of the stuff like they mentioned with the Furbolg language learning and all that, like that's much more flavorful RP. That's more about what this character did and what they know or whatever. And also stuff like with the achievements that you get around crests, and once you get to the thresholds where you don't need a crest because all of your item level is too high everywhere. that's character specific, which makes sense. I mean, these are not achievements that really reward anything mission critical compared to like renown or something like that, right? Like, it's a nice thing. It's like a nice acknowledgement, like, oh, look how much I powered up my character. I'll get some flight stones. So, that stuff is that, they look at that as something your character did, and that's why it's not going to be in this pool where it's like, oh, you did this on one character, now everybody gets the, I don't know, the whatever, they give you 100 flight stones or whatever from it. Like, it makes sense. Yep. But so you just have to kind of think about it that way, right? You can't, they're not going to just tack this stuff on if it's a thing that means you achieved a particular rank of something. Like, you actually have to get there on a character. It's not just, you spread it out across your whole account.
And and add it all together. As far as questing goes, players can earn bonus quest rewards for any quest completed for the first time on their warband. And any unadditional unique bonus will be granted for completing a quest additional times. In other words, if you've gone in and completed a quest on one character the very first time, and that quest was a storyline quest and gave you a particular bonus and a cool reward the first time you completed it, and it's a warband quest, you'll actually go up with another character and accept that quest. And when you do, it will tell you that it's a warband quest and that the main sort of reward has already been claimed, but you'll get XYZ reward for completing this on that secondary character the next time you go through and do it. So that just, I assume, prevents some sort of bloat of items coming up, but it's something they chose to do. So just keep that in mind as far as what warband quests end up looking like when it comes to the new expansion content. All right, map exploration. The warband map basically is something where they have the everywhere all at once toy that's going to be coming into the game, which is going to reveal all maps of regions fully explored by a member of your warband. And you get access to this toy once you have 2 max level characters. The thing about this is it's a toy. So if you're someone who really enjoys exploring the map and don't want to use it or don't want that to go across characters, guess what? You just don't use the toy on that character. So whenever you have a new character and you're starting at that character for the first time, you can choose to pull this toy out of your toy chest and use it. And now all the maps are explored to the maximum ability that you sort of have, similar to what we had with the flight path toys and all that sort of stuff. This is a similar thing where, hey, warband wise, you're able to, I could start a new character on a new server on a different faction and use this toy, and it would give me my map reveals that I have across my warband for that character if that's something I wanted to do. So it's up to you as to whether or not you want to use a toy like this, but you're going to need 2 max level characters to unlock it, and then you can have the warband map toy, which is kind of a neat thing for folks.
Yeah, it's cool. This is a bit tricky. Yeah, it's very preferential. I like the way they're implementing this, because for a lot of people, part of the fun is sort of unlocking the whole map, and granted, once you've done it once, it loses a bit of its charm maybe, but I could see a method where you use it as sort of a tool to know like where you've been and where you still need to go as you're working your way through zones or whatever. It's like, okay, this isn't uncovered yet on my map, so that means I should go there and do stuff there, right? Like, that's definitely a strategy you can use when leveling up an additional character or whatever. So you get the option here to reveal it or not. And once you're through, I don't know, once we get into the kind of era of the expansion where you have sort of these like speed leveled characters, then maybe it's really, you just want everything unlocked, opened up, visible, so you can go to whatever hub you need to go to and do the thing that you're there to do. That makes sense to me. And also, there's going to be bonuses to leveling up warband characters, like as you have more characters at level 80. So, the longer you go through, the more alts you do, the faster it's going to get to a certain point. And so, the first like couple times through, you might be wanting to have that fog of war on the map to kind of guide you to what you want to go explore. And later on, you might just say, forget it. I know what I'm doing. I just need to get in because I have this event coming up, or I want to go do this delve or whatever the case may be. I think it's pretty smart versus just saying, this is it. The map is just revealed account wide. You reveal it on one character, everybody sees it.
Yeah.
I feel like for some players that wouldn't be the right answer.
I agree entirely. A very cool update is finally coming in for currencies. The currency, basically, so to help avoid confusion over spending the wrong currency on the wrong character, they are now making it so that currency is not fully warband wide. Instead, it can be transferred between individual characters. And you're like, okay, well, does this mean that I still need to like buy a bunch of boxes and then mail a bunch of boxes to the right character? No, actually, you can directly transfer any shareable currency from other characters to one you're currently playing within the currency user interface. So if you go to the currency tab, you should be able to transfer currency from one of your other characters to your character using that UI. That to me is very cool and long overdue. I would love even more if there was going to be any kind of like, hey, we want people to buy boxes because we want people to buy boxes that are worth 800 resource for 1,000 resource. So there's some sort of, diminishing returns that happen here when you're transferring currency. If it just did the math for you, would also be kind of a nice thing when you're doing this, because there's nothing like having to buy 50 or 60 boxes with a 12 item mailbox max and try and send all those items to another character who then has to open them all and then open all the boxes to get all the currencies that they want to do, as opposed to being like, no, I want to send 10,000 currency, and it goes, this will cost 12,000 currency. Are you sure you want to do it? Yes, done. Sent. That to me would be ideal. So if that's what we're looking at, great. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what this is actually going to look like UI interface wise, but I like the idea and I'm looking forward to seeing it play out for folks.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they've come up with these solutions over the years for this that are quite unwieldy. I think a lot of players probably don't even know that they exist, right? And
yeah,
even the ones that don't have a premium that you're paying to do the transfer, they're just a pain. You got to go to the specific vendor. You have to buy the item that you can transfer. Then you have to go to a mailbox. You have to send it to the proper character. And then it's going to mentally keep track of what's in the mail going where, and then, all that. There are screenshots of like what this looks like in the blog post, but they're so tiny that it's hard to see like inline in the blog. But it looks like you can literally just like click on the currency and then there's like a drop down to choose the character you want to send it to and the amount. And that's incredible. I mean, what a huge upgrade. And I think this is smart too. Like, yeah, you could just do all currency totally account wide, but depending on what you're spending the currency for and like how you get it, and they're not all currencies are equal, right? Yeah. Like some of them are really important and they're for very specific things, and not all currencies are going to be account wide anyway, right? Like your crests or whatever they end up calling them, and that stuff is going to be tied to the character. But for other stuff, some of that you might want cosmetics on this character and you might want catch-up gear on this character, and having one big pool of it might end up in a situation where you buy something that you didn't really want, like you accidentally spend more of your currency than you meant to because you thought you had something somewhere else. This way, it's at least very deliberate. If you want to make a big pool of the currency, then you can do that, but you have to go on each character and send it to the destination. So also nice for, when you have situations where you have some currency left over, you did this thing, you bought the thing you wanted, now you have like 78 of these tokens, they're just going to rot on this tab for all time. Now you can, maybe you can funnel those to a character to still get some benefit out of. That could be a really nice use case for this. So really cool change. Really, this seems pretty elegant to me compared to what we've been used to. And I think it's better to have that delineation between characters than just one huge pool that you're just spending on different characters out of. I like that kind of those like guardrails a little bit better for my own safety, right? So that I don't do something that I didn't think I was doing with some currency that I earned.
Yeah, and just easier access to the UI. Like a clear, simpler access to the UI is a really nice thing to see. Okay, the Radiant Echoes event. This is the pre-patch event. It's taking place from the 30th until the 26th. So this actually is taking place through the early launch of the 22nd in August. Players who did not choose to opt in for that, pay the currency to be able to do it, are going to be able to still do the pre-patch event through those days if they still want to occupy their time doing something. The hubs are going to be in Dalaran, as well as you're going to be able to also go to Dragonblight, Dustwallow Marsh, and Searing Gorge to actually take part in the event. So you'll go to Dalaran to actually spend your currency, which is residual memories. And these are half-forgotten memories, and they can be glimpsed in the light of playing across this iridescent powder. Basically, you're going to be, I assume, throwing powder in an area, and it's going to light up memories, and you're going to be able to participate in this if you're level 10 through 70. So I imagine this is going to be a great leveling experience, too, because hopefully these events stay true to that and are good leveling experiences. So players who reach level 70 will receive an introductory quest, and then will be directed to visit Dalaran to start. Players under level 70 will be immediately directed to Dalaran, so you don't get that introductory quest. The event occurs in 4 stages and cycles between 3 zones. Portals in Dalaran will be available to take you directly to the event staging area, and a return portal is available in each zone of the event zone so that players can quickly return to Dalaran and head into the next occurrence of the event. I love this. I love that you can actually portal back and forth quickly between the hub zone and the zones that you're in. This is wonderful, as opposed to being like, hey, it's a good thing I'm a human and I got that human racial with double Hearthstone because I'm going to be using it. Yeah, that's...
Or like, hey, who's got the weak aura that shows me where the next thing is? Like, hopefully we don't have to resort to that. This seems user-friendly to me, which I think is important. You know, the whole point is that we should be in here farming this out and getting the unique stuff and getting the catch-up gear and whatever. And so, yeah, make it friendly. Dalaran's where we're going to be hanging out, and then going from there to the other places, whichever one's active. And yeah, having like 2-way transport, that sounds incredible. Imagine that. You know, we've had that in the past where like, well, you can get there, but you're not really coming. We're not going to bring you back. You got to figure that part out on your own. And for these types of events, that to me, that's just obnoxious, because sometimes you just get stranded somewhere unless you're a mage or something. So, I feel like it's smart. It seems like a smart setup. I haven't done this at all. Like, I don't know if this has been on PTR. Like, I haven't logged into PTR, and I haven't played very much beta at all. I've just been so busy with other stuff that I haven't had a chance. So I'm not sure if this is testable right now, but it sounds good to me. I like the pitch here in terms of user friendliness. Like, okay, I know it's going to be in one of these 3 places. It lasts for like a decently long time in one of them, so it's not like I have to catch this tiny little window and then I don't know where to go. And I know that if I start here, I can go where I want to go and come back.
Yeah, and you won't need a weak aura, because when the event is active in a zone, the portal to that zone will have an additional golden glow added to it. So it's indicating that it's active. So even if you're like hopping on and being like, so where's the thing? You just look at the portal that glows gold and go, hey, that's the portal I need to go to. Great.
I feel like there's some lessons that have been learned here.
I agree.
With some of the things they're incorporating into this event, I guess, is my point.
Yep, I agree entirely. So the first week that this event is on, the zones are going to cycle every 90 minutes. The second week, they'll cycle every 60. And the third week, they'll cycle every 30 through those different zones. So that way you can actually, I guess, if people who are trying to catch up as the expansion is coming up to launch, if there's particular achievements or accomplishments you want to do inside those different zones, you'll be able to see them every 30 minutes and be able to like get in, do the things you need to do, and get out kind of idea for what players are doing. So during the first stage of the event, players will need to defeat the congealed memories, which I'm just FYI, these are just Jello memories. That's what they are to me now. They're just literally going to be like gummy Ragnaros that you're fighting, and he's going to be, just a big Jello mold that will appear in the zone and the memories around it. In stage 2, you're going to be defeating radiant echoes causing havoc in the zone. There are 6 random events that are active within the zone that can be seen on the map. Event locations throughout these stages are marked by a multicolored globe. Hey, look, they're reusing the Azeroth globes. I'm very glad that they're choosing to do this, because I love that aesthetic. It's very cool. And in stage 3, you'll be able to undertake a quest in each zone during the event that will ask you to defeat one of the following bosses. You basically get only darkness by defeating the Lich King inside Dragonblight, Broken Masquerade by defeating Onyxia in Dustwallow Marsh, and Champion of the Waterlords by defeating Firelord Ragnaros in Searing Gorge. So, yeah, please note that once the boss is defeated by players, stage 4 will begin, and the boss will no longer be able to be available to kill for the quest completion until the event begins in the zone again. Bosses can also rarely drop additional pieces of gear, so people can get more gear. And in stage 4, the radiant echoes have subsided, and players can choose to return to Dalaran or stay within the zone to slay lingering memories that continue to accrue additional residual memories, the currency that you want. A timer within the zone, the residual memories are still active will count down to the next zone. Players can return to Dalaran and take the portal with the golden glow to the next zone that goes active. So the stages we just described are basically the intensifying of this event when you go to a zone. When you first go to a zone, you got a bunch of gummy memories that you're fighting. When you go to stage 2, because you've defeated enough of these memories, we then see that we're going to have this like defeating these battles that earn these orbs. And once you've earned enough of these orbs, it then moves to stage 3. You defeat a big boss. And then you're basically into the, hey, do I want to farm some more currency? Because we finished the event that happens every 90 minutes in 40 minutes. So there's 50 minutes left of what do I do for these 50 minutes before we move to the next zone? Well, you can hang out, earn a bunch more currency to spend on rewards. I like the layout of this event. I think it's neat that it progresses through stages. I like that the first week that it's out, it's a longer event, so players can really sort of get a handle on things. And most likely will take players longer because they're getting a handle on things, which is good. But the most exciting thing about this, I think, is which memories are they going to choose to represent for you to actually see and take part in when you're defeating in these battles. Because they can choose some really cool stuff from Warcraft lore that they choose to throw in there for players to check out. Like, I expect to see iconic characters. I expect to see iconic confrontations. I expect to see like a lot of that stuff, that almost that feeling you got when, you know, during Shadowlands, you were going through the undead sort of zone, whatever Necro zone was.
The Necrolord
zone, yeah. Right? And you were coming across all of these like dead heroes that were like chilling and hanging out. Like Lady Vash was there and other characters were there. It'd be neat to have that sort of same feeling of like, oh man, look, it's this thing from, you know, Burning Crusade taking place here, of the opening of the portal or whatever it is, or the, you know, like just any memory being thrown into that space would be really cool to see. I don't think it needs to be attached to that zone specifically, but it'd be cool if it was. So yeah.
Yeah, what's the description this kind of reminds me of inside the event. And again, I haven't seen this. I haven't like played it on PTR or anything, but parts of it sound like time rifts. Like stage 1 sounds like a time rift kind of, where there's, you know, you're fighting the memories and whatever, and maybe that'll have some randomness in terms of what's spawning and what you're fighting. And then stage 2 sounds kind of like a hunt, like the six random events active within the zone. Sounds like the kind of the unfolding scenario in the Grand Hunts in Dragonflight. So I think, you know, both of those kind of worked out well. I think they were some of the, shall we say, least obnoxious of the like public and outdoor events in Dragonflight, because there's a lot of momentum, you know, there's stuff happening, you're fighting stuff, you know. With Hunt, sometimes you got to move around a bit more, or you know, like just click on stuff, but you're not just following the tree around for 20 minutes. So yeah, that's kind of the impression I get from the way they describe those two stages. And then obviously you have the boss fight. I guess it is going to be a little bit weird the first couple weeks if you get to stage 3 and you defeat the boss, and then that zone is just kind of tapped out other than the congealed memories for, you know, the next 45 minutes or something or more. Like, you know, I don't know. Maybe they have sort of, maybe they'll kind of stretch out the timer a bit more, like when it's longer for the zone rotations, so that, you know, it takes longer to move from stage 1 to 2 or something. And then that'll give more people a chance to join the event. Because, you know, you want to kill the bosses. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that you need to have killed each of the different bosses for, right? So that'd be kind of a bummer to, like, okay, this zone is just tapped out for the next hour and a half or whatever almost, you know? I guess I'll have to find something else to do. That won't be an issue the last week when everything is on the, you know, the 30-minute timer. But I do wonder if that's going to be kind of flexible, or if there's some kind of thing where the event could start over in the zone or something before the rotation. If the boss gets killed early enough, I don't know. Like you want people in there doing stuff that feels good to do, not just pointlessly grinding the, you know, low impact, low value mobs waiting for the next thing to roll over in 90 minutes, I guess that's my concern. But you know, overall, like the stuff that sounds good is you can get to where you're going quick, you can get back, and then it's asking you to do like relatively simple combat focused stuff to get currency that will be account bound, and then you can buy stuff. So, you know, it's hitting a bunch of those notes for me. Like, obviously, I'll be checking this out a lot and doing it a lot because I want to get the unique stuff, and I want to also get some, you know, powered up loot for characters that have been neglected and underutilized and underpowered. Yeah. Okay. So right off the bat, loot wise that people are interested in, gear is going to begin at item level 480 with some room for upgrades.
And one of the first items that you can purchase only costs 25 residual memories, which is nothing comparatively to the cost of other stuff. Like, for example, like a bag costs 2,000, right? So 25 residual memories gets you this lifeless stone ring. And this lifeless stone ring is an heirloom ring that you can use to collect memories throughout the 3 zones to combine into essence and infuse it with power, creating the Band of Radiant Echoes, which is that ring. So basically you get the lifeless ring, you go around to the different zones and just do the events inside those zones. It empowers the ring up, and you then create the Band of Radiant Echoes, which is this item level 227 heirloom ring that characters can then use when they're leveling up, which I think is going to be pretty cool. So that's a neat sort of starter of right off the bat, hey, get 25 memories and just buy the ring, and then just have the ring so that it can actually get powered up, as opposed to doing the event for the first day and then realizing, oh, I could have bought this ring ages ago and I would have already been powering it up. So get on that quick. The bag is a 32 slot bag that you can buy for 2,000. They also have the Remembered Golden Griffin and Remembered Wind Rider, which are essentially like a blue Azerite style looking mount that has golden highlights to it. And by golden, I mean like this is like fluorescent, bright gold kind of shining color on it. So both of these mounts are very cool looking. The Griffin is only 20,000. Well, I guess they're both 20,000. They just didn't use a comma inside one of these. But yes, they're both 20,000 residual memories to buy. They are Alliance and Horde only as far as the Golden Griffin and Wind Rider. So I don't know if this currency, this residual memories, is going to be warbound or not. So you can move it between factions, but you might need to do a little farming on both factions if you want to get both mounts. So the mounts, though, are certainly worthwhile picking up. They're going to be very unique and obviously only available during this. I don't know if they're going to end up inside the trading post later on. Maybe they will. But for now, this is a great opportunity to get them. So they're 2K a piece. There's a 30 slot reagent bag for 2,000. There are pets, basically the Remembered Spawn, Remembered Construct, Remembered Riverpaw. Similarly coloring of like this like blue memory of Azerite blue with this really gold hot highlight that comes through it. These are all 10,000 a piece. They have essentially a bunch of necks and rings and trinkets and backs and, you know, all sorts of different gear. So you can gear up all of your different characters, including weapons. Weapons run about 4,000 a piece, 5,000 a piece. Most gear runs in that 3,500 to 5,000 kind of range, depending on the piece and where it goes. There are like wands, pole arms, shields. So there's tons of transmog to get that's going to be associated with this. It's all Dalaran Defender. So I would expect it has some Dalaran theming to it. Potentially it's got that, you know, purple kind of highlight with maybe some Dalaran symbols on it. I haven't looked at the gear in particular yet, but something to expect is if you want to gear up a character, which, you know, I'm certainly going to have some characters I want to gear up, is going to be a nice way to do it. You start off at 480. They are upgradable. They might be upgradable with residual memories. I'm not sure what they're doing currency-wise for upgrades. We'll have to find that out. But it's certainly going to be a great catch-up moment for players who want to get into the new content with War Within when it launches. So certainly an event you don't want to miss out on, and get those limited time rewards while you can.
Yeah, there's a lot to buy. Looking at the price list, I'm hoping that they're quite generous with residual memories because, man, I mean, obviously the heirloom thing, that seems like a must. That's just a fun thing to have on your account forever. And, you know, it's obviously cheap, but yeah, that's like immediately, as soon as you have any residual memories in your pocket, buy the Lifeless Stone ring, get working on your heirloom ring. Big bags are cool. Unique mounts are cool. You know, there's pets and all that stuff is, the mounts and pets are all, you know, 5 digits of residual memories. And then all of the gear is 4 digits. So hopefully we're getting this in huge chunks from doing this stuff. You know, it looks like in the posts, they show like the plate gear, which is a recolor of one of the sets from Legion. It was like the Argus plate with the big wings on the shoulders, but it's recolored to be Dalaran glowy arcane purple, which is pretty cool, but probably just recolors for existing models across the board, which is fine. But yeah, and it's going to be 480, which is that is like LFR equivalent item level, and I assume it's going to be on the same track. Is it Champ track? I forget what the name of that track is, but you probably just can upgrade it the same way you upgrade everything else. But, you know, I mean, 480 I think is pretty generous. That's really not bad. It's not incredible, but it'll get you going for War Within, I'm sure. Just by comparison, like I've been playing a lot of characters that were getting a little dusty, right? And so I had done the Dragonflight pre-expansion event with all of these tunes, and I had them all like decked out, and it was 252 blues were what you would get at the top end of that event. And I got heirlooms, you know, so I got my heirlooms ranked up for cloth because I was doing 2 clothies in a row, and it's like, okay, you could save the rested XP, or rested XP decays slower if you have the buffs from the heirloom set. I didn't end up replacing the gear I was wearing with the heirlooms on an item level basis until like level 63. Right. So if you get these, and if you really want to have like a tune that you want to gear up, I think you could probably take the track to like 493-ish. Like you might have that gear for a few levels into War Within, which would be pretty cool. I will probably not take it that far because I have just too many bases to cover. So I'll probably just try to get everybody up to that 480 baseline and call it good. If I can even do that, I don't know. It's going to depend a lot on what the yield from the stuff is like, because you know, some of the stuff is really pricey, and obviously my main concern is going to be getting the unique stuff from the event. I definitely want the mounts. I definitely want the pets. I definitely want to get the heirloom done. What's cool, I guess, is it sounds like you are not going to be fishing for a drop from stuff. Like it sounds like the bosses can drop gear, which is cool. So that'll save you, you know, 8,000 memories if you get like a 2-handed weapon or something. You know, it'll save you the trouble of spending the currency on it. But like, remember the Shadowlands pre-event where we're farming like crazy for that bag drop from the one rare that would spawn an Ice Crown, and like there was no way to just go buy it. You had to just get lucky with the drop, and so you had to kill it every time it spawned until you got the drop, or daily, or whatever the story was. Like I don't remember specifically, but this event sounds like that's not the case. Like, what could possibly be on from a drop that isn't an heirloom, bags, mounts, pets, right? Like all the stuff that we want from these events as collectors and as like max level players, people with long-term accounts or whatever. All that stuff is on the vendor for currency. It's just there.
Right.
So it's just a matter of participating. If you participate enough, you will be able to get whatever you want out of the event. You're not super locked into a particular schedule or crossing your fingers that you get lucky with a specific drop. So that seems really nice if that ends up being the case. If there's like nothing to fish for from drops and it's just like, well, here's a gear token or whatever. Perfect. I like the way that sounds. So, I mean, these are always exciting, right? Like the pre-expansion events, man. I remember the one for Legion. Geez, like it was what, like demons would invade like starter towns.
Yep.
And I just leveled up my whole stable of like horde characters because I had a bunch of Lobby horde tunes. I would just like make one, go out to the Barrens and just hang out, like kill some demons, and the XP bar would just fill up. I don't know if this one's going to be quite like that, but
yeah, I think it took like 4 hours to level a character entirely in Legion. It was
and you didn't have to go anywhere, right? Yeah, it was something like that.
Area. Yeah.
So if this has any kind of utility like that to level up with, I think that'll be really fun too, especially with the giant XP requirement discounts coming in. Because you don't have to do this on max level characters either. Like obviously, you're not going to benefit from the gear until you hit max level, but you know it's all there. So I think they've done some really cool stuff with the pre-expansion event in the past. This one seems like they've learned a lot of lessons in terms of quality of life and in terms of what players want out of participating in something like this. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it. I'm going to miss like an entire week of it, unfortunately, but I will be, I'll be around for the final week. And that's I feel like the most important one because you're going to get the most variety with the rotations, right? I'll only have a few days to kind of mess with the first week, and then I'll be gone for like an entire week, basically, the 60-minute rotation week. But then I'll be around for the 30-minute rotation week. So that should be, hopefully that's enough time to get everything I want out of the event. I mean,
yeah. No,
when I'm thinking of as many tunes as I'm thinking of, it's like, that might be a little bit, that might be a bit of a tall order. We'll just make sure that we get the mounts and pets first. Exactly.
Right. And the biggest thing to me is this sort of harkens along the thing that I've sort of been saying for a while of respect players' time. My hope is stuff is easy enough to earn that if you dedicated yourself during that full last week of 30 minutes, you could get the mounts and pets and things that you wanted and a few pieces of gear. That to me would be nice. If that was the case, if the expectation is no, you have to play every day for 3 weeks to be able to earn the mounts and the pets and gear for your character and maybe gear for an alt or whatever it is, that is a bad expectation for players. So I'm hoping it's like, no. the way we've laid this out with that faster rotation will be you're just cranking through currency in that last week, and we're letting you know ahead of time that we intend to speed things up so that you are cranking through currency, right? They're going to have the slower drip at the 90-minute, the medium drip at 60-minute, and then the fast drip at 30-minute for how this currency gets unloaded out there for folks. Because you have to think, like, if the whole event is taking place every 30 minutes, you are going to be getting in there, going through phase 1, 2, 3, 4 really quick, and then immediately into the next one, right? So I think that that's probably the expectation for folks. And yeah, I'd hope that you'd have enough time in a week to be able to get that done. All right. Paid character transfer services update ahead. So with the launch of War Within pre-expansion arriving on the 23rd, they're going to be disabling paid character transfers, which we've talked about already on here. But this service will still be available to use between realms and between World of Warcraft accounts within a single Battle.net account. Please be aware that transfers between Battle.net accounts will not be available after the pre-expansion update has gone live. Any tokens that you have, like that you saved up, but are going to go away. So use them up before that happens, because you're going to start losing all that stuff. So definitely be sure you're taking advantage of this service before it goes away in pre-patch launching next week. We just wanted to highlight that again. They've basically done this same announcement 3 weeks in a row because they want everyone to really see it and know that.
Well, it's like anything that involves
moving
anything
characters
with a character on your BNet account is changing. This is different than the announcement that we talked about last week, because this is like if you have multiple subscriptions or whatever, and you're trying to move one character between a subscription. Yeah, that's not going to work anymore. So it's a little weird. It makes sense because with Warbands, the whole point is that like everything on your BNet account is supposed to just be at your disposal, and that's cool. And it also means like that, they're not going to take your money in order for stuff on your two different subs to meet up in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it in a weird way for myself because, if my kids want to play WoW and they want their own subscriptions, like ideally I would put that under my Battle.net account because they would get all the cool stuff on my Battle.net account on their subscriptions. But then it also just blows up this whole concept because they can't kind of have their own little account slice where they can still actually do stuff. They're just tunes in my Warband. Like I don't know, that kind of blows it apart, which stinks, but who knows if that'll ever even happen, right? This is sort of an eventuality that I prepared myself for that may never happen.
Yeah. But
if it ever does, then I got to figure out like, okay, how are we going to approach this? Because before this, I would have just said, okay, we're going to get you a subscription under my account. You have my Brutosaur mount on your account and everything, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not going to work like that anymore. And it makes sense. Like it probably can't even, right? Like that goes against the whole concept of the Warband. It's the opposite of what the Warband is doing to our accounts. So just something to keep in mind, I guess. If you're in that spot, like you might need to start up a new Battle.net account to get a tune out of there before next week. Like just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Very, very edge case situation, but I'm sure it exists for somebody. So that's, just all this stuff. Just keep in mind all this stuff. Like if you have anything on your overarching BNet account, your WoW subs that is impacted by Warbands, like take care of it this week. Don't even wait until like Monday because you might forget or something might come up or who knows, maybe services might start coming down. Like just get it done this week and just get ready for the big changes coming in.
Exactly. Dragonflight Season 4 is ending, as you'd expect. Basically, they let it be known that Dragonflight Season 4 will close soon. Players who make a big push to the end of the season will want to get started on their final weeks of efforts. When Season 4 ends, it will no longer be possible to earn PvP seasonal rewards, titles, or Dragonflight Season 4 rankings. For a time after the end of Season 4, most Mythic Plus achievements will remain earnable. We will let you know the exact dates and times for the end of Season 4 and the beginning of Season 1 of War Within as soon as possible. Please keep an eye on the official news site for all the information. Best of luck. I think we already know when Season 1's launching for War Within. So essentially they threw that in there, unless they're planning to change that. But Season 4 ending, I'm assuming we'll find out Thursday this week, is typically when we'd see an announcement like that saying, hey, we've finally decided on a date it's going to be. And what's going to be weird is the class balance changes from pre-patch going live and the healing changes that we'll talk about a little bit later on going live. and then essentially that twisting and shaping all of these Mythic Plus achievements is all I'm really thinking about at this point, right? Like, the nice thing about pre-patch is, yes, raid content will most likely get easier because your character's going to get substantially stronger. However, when you're dealing with people who are trying to get like that 0.01 percentile ranking reward with titles and everything for PvP or for Mythic Plus, it's weird to not have the season end before pre-patch hits. I'm just saying, that's a strange thing to me. So I was expecting this post to be like, next Tuesday, it's ending. Get your stuff together.
Yeah. Like, my guess is that the season's going to essentially end. Like, rankings are going to close like late Monday night, NA. This post came out before the pre-patch date announcement. Yeah. It's weird that there's no follow-up yet, but this post came out like Monday or Tuesday, and then we got the pre-patch announcement on Thursday. You know, they kind of, Kaivax kind of says in this post without saying that, like, okay, this is the last 2 weeks, like this week being last week now, and this week, this coming reset week is the end of it. So my guess would be, you know, ranking related rewards are going to close like late Monday or somewhere before reset on Tuesday. And that getting like your Keystone Master, Keystone Hero portals and all that, that'll probably be up until August 22nd or something. You know, they'll probably shut that off once early access starts up, because, you know, you could theoretically level to 80, and then I don't think it would be too hard to do, you know, plus 10s or whatever in Dragonflight Keystones. So that would be my guess, is we'll have another couple weeks for stuff like that, like those individual achievements, not the rating related stuff. That all locks in, and, you know, they got to close it at some point because it's too fluid. But 2,000 is 2,000, 2,500 is 2,500. You get those rewards for that. A plus 10 is a plus 10. So they'll probably leave that up until you can get above level 70 would be my guess. Yeah. But yeah, if you're pushing for a PvP or Mythic Plus title, like, this is, I would just go into this with the mentality that it's your last week to do it and do whatever you feel like you need to do. Man, that sucks if you're trying to get the Keystone title, because what a week to have to push rating to try to get in under that threshold. Oh, good luck to you all.
Indeed. All right, Mythic Plus, since we're talking about it, they did some more affix updates for War Within. With Season 1, War Within is going to be dealing with the Xal'atath's bargain taking place. Well, they've added a new bargain called Voidbound, and they've removed Frenzied. Frenzied is now out of beta testing, so we're not going to see the Frenzied one anymore. Well, what Voidbound is while in combat, Xal'atath summons Void Emissaries to empower nearby enemies, gradually increasing their damage. Upon defeating the Void Emissary, players harness the Void energy for themselves, increasing their critical strike chance by 20% for 20 seconds. So that's the new affix that's coming in. And with Xal'atath's bargain affixes, they intend to create varied challenges that highlight different class skills and utilities in ways that do not feel exclusionary, which is speaking specifically to Jason. They actually said Jason at the top of this. We look forward to your feedback and discussion on these changes. It's good that they're moving in the direction of trying to make sure these aren't exclusionary and aren't in a situation where it's influencing who you're inviting to your group for the week based off their class and what utility they can bring to the group specifically to counteract affixes. If you're someone who wants to have heroism in your group, because you always like having heroism in your group, I get it. That's fine. You want to make sure you got a class in there that can do it. But if it's something where it's like, because of this one affix, only these 3 classes are the viable in this role to bring, that's unfortunate. And I'm glad that they're moving away from that direction, which is good to hear. I still am hesitant about some of these particular affixes. I like the idea of having a Void Emissary spawn in and defeating it and getting a boost. I feel like 20% crit for 20 seconds is not going to be as impactful as I would like it to be. And I feel like adding trash to a dungeon that then makes the trash more dangerous and difficult isn't something I'm going to enjoy on keystones that are already tyrannical and fortified. And again, I feel like this is an appearance thing, where if they remove tyrannical and fortified entirely, they were no longer a thing at all, and just tune the dungeons up, people would have a better perception of the dungeons, not seeing the words tyrannical and fortified involved in the affixes. I really do. I think that keeping tyrannical and fortified is a mistake, because they both have this long-term connotation as to what that means. And it means bosses are going to be hitting harder and have more health, and it means the trash is going to be sloggier and take longer to get through and more dangerous. And if you get rid of those terms, all the people who have some sort of negative connotation towards them will be able to relax and breathe a little better, even if you just rolled that damage into the dungeon tuning wise. I honestly think they're just negative buzzwords that they should drop out of the whole system and just go with tuning. And I think that would make sense.
Yeah, I'm starting to lose the script here on the Mythic Plus updates. Like this new one where, yeah, there's a new thing you have to kill that then you get a very short-term buff from defeating it. Like, this is the exact kind of stuff that they've said they don't want to do and that they didn't want to do, and they don't want to have your character play differently in Keystone Dungeons and in other modes. This is way too mini-gamey for my personal taste. And yeah, like, what do? Drag the emissary to the boss or whatever? Like, I don't know. I'm starting to not understand how this is actually better than what we've had traditionally with Keystones, especially when you start thinking about getting into that 10 range, trying to unlock your teleports. And now you got the per rank scaling and all that stuff. Plus you got Fort and Tyrannical on every mob in every dungeon. Plus you have stuff like Voidbound that they're talking about. Like, I don't see how this is strictly better than kind of the rotation that we're used to for most players. I mean, I understand that, if you want to push rating and you want to get the title and you want to do, MDI great push and you want to do 23s or whatever, that now you get a consistent experience that's just scales off of the level that you're doing, and that's great. But what about the entire rest of us, who is almost everybody who does Keystones, right? Like, there are not many players in that category I'm describing who benefit from these changes. This tuning is going to have to be really locked in and feel really good for this to be a satisfying process, I think. I was on board with the initial round of changes that they said they were going to make, which everybody kind of hated, and they immediately reversed course on. The second round sounded okay to me. I'm starting to really not understand where they're going here or what the goal is. And like, this is so late in the process. The expansion's almost out. We're going to be in season 1 in a month and a half. I mean, they got time and they can obviously change stuff on a dime and do whatever they want to do with it. But are they going to? Is it going to be a priority? If it's bad, if it's not fun to do, then, what are they going to do to fix it, I guess, is my concern. It's just like, this is so up in the air, and almost nobody has like really, like, the wider player base has no exposure to this stuff, right? Like, this is going to be, no matter what they do in terms of beta testing, PTR testing, communications, the average player is going to log in and go to do a Keystone on September 10th and go, what is happening here? Wait, it's like this? These affixes, what? How do I do this? All the old affixes are gone. I have to kill the thing that Xalatath summons in. Like, it's going to be a big transition for everybody. And if the tuning is off, it's going to feel awful. So I don't know, man. It's hard for me to sustain my enthusiasm for these Mythic Plus changes, because I think they're just getting farther and farther away from what I like about the mode, or at least tolerate about the mode. Maybe put it that way. I don't know. I'm not one of the people who was on, pounding the drum to get rid of affixes and to change up that formula significantly. I think it was okay. I don't really have a problem with what we're used to with Keystones. I'm okay with them taking a pass and doing something different after all these years. It'd be 8 years now since Mythic Plus started. Fine. You want to kind of reimagine what they can be, take a different pass at it. I'm cool with that, but I feel like this is really, it's sort of doubling down on the stuff that I personally like the least about Keystone Dungeons, and then sort of revisiting these concepts from previous seasons that, in my opinion, didn't work super great in the first place. So I don't know. I have some concerns. Ultimately, it all comes down to class and dungeon tuning. And, I'm just taking a wait and see. I'm not enthused, but I'll obviously be playing it. So, we'll see how it feels once season 1 happens.
I think a wait and see is a good idea. I'm going to remain positive about the Mythic Plus stuff. I think this is one of those cases where, like, we've given feedback on this show about what we want. They have delivered something that's similar to what we sort of had discussed idea-wise, and we're now saying, or at least you're now saying, like, hey, I'm not sure this actually is what I want. So it's that case of like, are we really sure we know what this is going to feel like and play like? And I'd rather wait and see and give feedback when it comes to this sort of content. I would like to see personally the return of sort of the type of affixes that everyone sort of united behind enjoying, like when we were doing BFA and we had the portal system where you could kill a mob in one location and it would open a portal, and then you could travel through that portal zone and kill another mob in another location and open another portal. And now you've created a shortcut between two places. That to me was very cool. And I really liked that affix. And I think it'd be neat to see more return of those sorts of things, those sort of seasonal affixes that we really enjoyed seeing and players really sort of got into. I mentioned Gahoonies last week as one of the banes that a lot of people really disliked about them. But I sort of try to look at this new affix in a similar way of, hey, you're going to have an additional mob that spawns. DPS is going to want to switch and burn it down as fast as possible, because not only is it making trash harder the longer it's up, it's also giving you a buff that you feel like you can actually use as a group. I think it will be awkward for players to figure out when they're supposed to use cooldowns inside these trash packs, because I think there will be that. Is it worth using your cooldowns to kill this thing faster? Or is it worth saving your cooldowns for when it dies for that 20% crit buff and sort of like let players figure out what works best for them? I do think there's going to be strategies that I know you mentioned that I'd also mentioned too of, hey, are they going to take this mob and drag it to a boss room and then kill it in a boss room and blow a boss up really quickly? Like, what are the strategies going to be for how they do this? I just think that the whole mode is still in so much flux with them removing Frenzied, bringing in Voidbound, that we're probably going to see 2 or 3 more changes as far as affixes go before we actually hit the launch of Mythic Plus, and it's a wait and see. So we'll have to wait, see how it goes, and figure it out from there. But I do want to highlight healing updates that are going to be taking place inside War Within. Kyvax came out and did another post saying in today's beta build, we're making some significant changes to healing that we've outlined in the development notes. Health pools are increasing relative to their Dragonflight values, which has changed how it feels to heal other players in a variety of content. Most notably, we're reducing the strength of percentage-based healing spells to keep them in line with their intended power, and we're increasing the effectiveness of hybrid healing and single-target healing spells to ensure they remain an effective means of defensive power. We hope with some of these adjustments that healing doesn't become any easier or harder. We intend to shift some of the challenging moments from overwhelmingly bursty damage to a more sustained healing profile. I think their intentions are good here. When you go through the actual notes that they put out, they're massive for these classes. The War Within notes are huge for what they're changing for all these classes. So I'll highlight again, if you're someone who's going to be playing War Within or playing in pre-patch, you're going to want to go and have a look at the development notes for this week, because you're going to see like Death Knights, Frost and Holy, Demon Hunters, all their hero talents, as well as the Havoc Spec, Restoration Druids, Devastation and Preservation Evokers, Survival Hunters, Arcane and Frost Mages, Mistweaver Monks, Holy and Retribution Paladins, Discipline Priests, Rogues in general, Elemental Enhancement and Restoration Shamans, Affliction and Destruction Warlocks, and Fury and Arms Warriors are all getting substantial changes to the percentages and how a lot of their abilities work. So you're going to want to have a look at this and make sure that you're in a good place for what change is about to happen. Like, everything's going to feel very different. Healing's going to feel different. Your class is going to feel different. Your abilities are going to feel different. You might not have some of the same abilities. It's good if you want to prepare yourself by checking it out. Otherwise, log in, next Tuesday and go, okay, what's going on? Because we will see some of that happen. Some of these changes aren't going to happen. Obviously, they mentioned like hero talents for Demon Hunter, for Eldraki, Reaver. Obviously, that's actually War Within beta, so that's War Within launch, where we see some of those changes take place. I expect some of these class changes will land with the actual pre-patch, and I expect some of them might be held off until we actually see the main game go live. So just good to keep your thumb on the scale when it comes to giving feedback and making sure that your class comes out in a way that's going to be fun. So check it out, see what the changes are, and see if you think it's a good idea or not. Leave some feedback and let the devs know.
Yeah, and this probably won't be the last round of updates that even makes it into pre-patch, would be my guess. Obviously the hero talent stuff is not going to be available at pre-patch, but all the other stuff will be. And I'll bet you that we see some other changes. Well, we might not see another build change get pushed this week, because we do have a release candidate and they do have to lock it in for, to actually ship it. Yeah. But we'll probably see like hotfix changes prior to reset or something for more tuning. Healing just seems like it's been in kind of a weird spot from what I've been hearing from people, where health bars just ping-ponging between 100 and 0 essentially, or like 1%. You're just doing that, They're sort of always trying to slow combat down, right, and have it be sort of more incremental, but that's really hard I don't think they've succeeded at that as much as they've tried to do it over the years. I think having, bigger health pools gives them some room to let, combat breathe, so you can actually take damage without being on the verge of death from any additional damage.
Well, there's a couple of things there, right? So by increasing health pools, it allows them to not have to tune as many abilities that bosses have. You can go, hey, you know what? We're just going to give everyone 20% more health. And that means any hit that would have one-shot you or would have dropped you down below, 30% health now doesn't. And now you actually have the larger health pool. It might not kill you anymore in that one-shot hit. You might survive with 10% hit points now. And the thing that dropped you below 30% now only drops you to 50%. So you have more buffer room to recover before the next thing happens. But by doing that, percentage-based healing gets way out of whack as far as tuning goes. So they have to bring down percentage-based tuning because everyone's total percentage health is much higher. So they had to bring that down and buff up the individual stuff that's not based off of percentage-based healing. So dynamic healing, single target healing, that sort of healing, so that it can actually still feel as effective as it was while not being overpowered in some way. So they're doing that balance. And I think this is the easier way than going, all right, what is all of the content that people are participating in right now? Let's tune all of these abilities down in a certain amount. They can just go, hey, give everyone 20% more health. And then we're like, all right, we're good. Now, I don't know if it's 20%. They just say increased health, but it's an increased value. So that is their way, I think, of simplifying the tuning for what they would need to do to try and get this working the way they want it to be working. So I think that is the big motivation. As far as healing goes, they've numerous times over the years run into this problem. Shadowlands was one that stands out really prominently, where there was a lot of abilities that were very unforgiving, and that's why they kept going in every week and tuning Anduin differently and tuning Halakron or Halasan or whatever differently. Like, they had to keep doing that over and over again because abilities were just one-shotting players and health pools were just spiking so much because stuff would hit so hard. So they keep backing themselves into the same corner, which is the weird part to me. I feel like at a certain point, you need to understand, hey, you know what? Just having really heavy hits doesn't make something hard. Like, you need to have sustained damage and have all your healing specs be about dealing with sustained damage to a certain degree. Those heavy hits can happen, but no heavy hit should be, in my opinion, ever higher than 60 or 70% of someone's health pool. It should never be that much higher. 60 or 70% should be the cap that anything ever hits a tank for as far as their health pool goes. So I struggle when you see a tank get one shot or get two tapped, where one gets hit down to 20% or 10% and then finished off by another ability that's like an AoE blast, where you're like, okay, like that shouldn't happen, because from a healing perspective, there's very little you can do to actually handle that unless it's predictable, consistent ability tied damage where they're able to use cooldowns to try and keep someone alive. So I'm glad they're looking at it. I think this is an easy way to fix it. I think that it makes the most sense to save the most time and put the most effort into something else while still giving players a better experience overall.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like this kind of issue they run into every couple years or something with,
Yep.
I don't know, just the way power scales up and the way that they're trying to tune encounters where, you don't want health bars yo-yoing because it's just not very interactive, and it doesn't provide opportunities for counterplay as much. It doesn't provide the correct kind of tension. And so I don't know. I think they do have some work to do with tuning. Hopefully these changes, have made a difference. I expect that we're going to just see a ton of class and content tuning passes in the early days of this expansion, because we have so much stuff coming in with hero talents and everything. There's just going to be a lot more dials that need to be tuned in and everything. And, obviously they run beta, they have testing, but how much of that info do they really have and how much of it is really actionable? It's not like they know exactly how the average players are going to be approaching this stuff and what they're going to be encountering once it's live. So I'm sort of just preparing myself for a roller coaster with tuning for the first probably few months here, at least, and obviously it's a never ending battle, right? There's never a point where WoW is perfectly tuned for the rest of this patch. Everything's fine now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they never get there. It's not possible to do that. And that would mean something different to each different player almost anyway. But I do feel like with the interactions of all these hero talents coming in, I think it's going to be a bit more volatile than maybe if they just added like, a couple new talents per class. Like you have a lot of variety here. There's going to be a big impact on combat overall. And so I suspect that this is going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride at the outset of War Within, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. With that, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us improve on all the content that we create. And I want to take this moment to give a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, Pinky, Rager. Thank you for everything that you give, as well as all of our patrons, past and present, who have supported the show. And our newest patrons, Toxic Toothpick and Soup, have joined in to support the show. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone who's hopping in to support. Our Patreon is live over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. You can go over there and support the show. Man, it is getting ramped up content-wise, and I'm so glad that there's so many people excited about it, because it is going to be a great expansion. I really do feel like we are heading into something pretty wonderful here. So thank you, patrons, for keeping us on track, making sure the show stays up and the archives keep going for Starting Zone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome aboard, Toxic Toothpick and Soup. We're glad to have you. And we appreciate that. And thanks to all patrons past and present for supporting us and, keeping the show in production, keeping it on the schedule, keeping the archives online. It means a lot. It helps us out tremendously. And yeah, I think the outlook for this expansion is really strong. I believe in them to iron out tuning issues and stuff. They've always done that in the past, but I think the new content is really exciting. And we've seen what they can do over the last couple years with Dragonflight and sort of, making the game something that's appealing and modern to play and just feels rewarding for your time investment. And with War Within, we haven't had these sort of overarching, crises or whatever you want to call them about the state of beta or whatever. Like there's concerns about things like healing tuning, for example, but it pales in comparison, I feel like, to where we were at, say, 4 years ago. The summer where Shadowlands was impending and we were begging them not to do what they were doing with certain things. I didn't have a real problem with the way covenants were locked in, but like with Covenant Energy specifically and some of the decisions that they were just not flexing on that was obviously not popular with any kind of player.
Yeah.
That it's a whole different world from back then. And I feel like unless there's something that we don't know about where there's a legendary that's tied into doing X amount of delves every week, and you have to do delves at a certain high level in order to get the currency that you need to get your legendary once a month.
But the currency drops in a weird random range of like you can get between 10 and 35 or whatever it is. So yeah,
it's like as long as they avoid pitfalls like that, then I think they're set up. The War Within is gorgeous, and it revisits a lot of really interesting concepts and character stuff that I think a lot of WoW players respond to strongly, but that we haven't seen in the game a lot, just like diving more into the Earthen or like that overall kind of dwarven vibe and culture, the Nerubians and all that stuff. And, I think that's great, really core Warcraft kind of fiction, but we just haven't gotten into it in a really long time. And I think it's exciting for people, that the vibes around the game have been really strong. And this summer, people are really excited. We've heard from a lot of people who listen to the show who are either, newish to the game or returned after a really long time, newish to the show. Like there's a lot of positive momentum among the community. And I think that War Within is in a good position to capture it. This might be the first time we get two really good expansions back to back. I mean, we can't see the future and there's always pitfalls with everything, but in the past, like when BFA was coming out, when Shadowlands was coming out, I had severe concerns about stuff leading into those expansions launching. Yeah. And I couldn't tell you what would be the equivalent of that for me going into this one. There is no Azerite armor. There is no Covenant. We're just doing WoW stuff. So that's pretty cool. And I think a lot of people are sort of in that mode with me. It seems like people are really excited about the game right now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, if you folks have enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider heading on over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our show, and we love reading them here from our listeners. This one comes in from Payne, entitled WoW says, this podcast gives good information on a weekly WoW goings on. If you're looking for updates on the Boston Celtics or New York Yankees, this is not the podcast for you. But if you want WoW information, give this show a listen. Thank you so much, Payne, for hopping in and supporting the show by leaving us a 5-star. It means a lot. And yeah, I'm glad that you're finding the show informative. And I hope that you have sports podcasts that you listen to for those other shows, if that's something you want.
I feel like this is really directly pointed at me as a Philly sports fan, because I will not give you any updates that you want to hear on either the Celtics or the Yankees, not anywhere, not in the show or personally. But yeah, thank you for writing in. Really appreciate it. Glad we could help you out. I mean, you know, this is why we do the show. This is what we want to put out into the world, and it's always nice to hear from people. So I appreciate you taking some time. I know it's like, it is kind of an ask to get in there into the iTunes store and type up the review. So thank you for doing that. It's good to hear from you. Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, that's going to wrap up episode 640 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or you can hop into our Discord, thestartingzone.com/Discord. If you want to get your hands on some TSZ gear, some shirts or mugs or sweaters or hoodies or whatever, that's over at TeePublic, teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. You can get shirts, all that sort of stuff over there. And Jason, if folks are looking for you on the internet, where can they find you?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. You can also find me on Blue Sky. It's just Jay Lucas over there. You can find the video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Video channels have been kind of dormant, but, you know, I will be doing stuff as we get closer to expansion, probably do some pre-patch stuff and whatever. It's just a struggle, you know, to find the time to make it happen, but I want to get back into it and showcase some of the stuff and just hang out. So check out the video channels as well.
Yeah, trying to find me. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or on youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, I want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.